Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first session of the BRIC Summer Engagement. My name is Camille Crane. I'm the BRIC Section Chief of FEMA Headquarters, and I'm so excited that you could join us today for this first session. Over the next 5 weeks, every Wednesday in July, we will be coming to you to provide a number of information for all of our stakeholders to give you more information about the BRIC program and hopefully make you successful in applying for our BRIC program opening up this fall. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a few logistics of the actual webinar. First, we're going to be recording our webinar today. We know there was a lot of interest in it. We know not everyone can join us on Wednesdays from 2 to 3 Eastern. So we will be recording all these sessions and posting them. That may take us a couple weeks, but we hope to have them up very soon. Because of the large number of participants we have in the webinar today, we have muted all lines. We also will not be able to have a live chat or Q&A session at the end of this engagement because of the amount of content that we've put into it. You will notice a Q&A pod on your Adobe Connect. It says actual technical questions and support. So if you are having issues throughout the webinar, please feel free to type those technical issues in there, and we have moderators that will help you. We will be having, after the Notice of Funding Opportunity comes out in the month of August, as we're planning, we will have a string of webinars that we were going to give robust Q&A time. So please know that we're going to be able to answer your questions during that webinar series in the month of August and September. Also on the screen today, you'll see where there is a file download that has a couple of items that you can download. One, today's presentation, as well as an infographic, which is a one-pager that gives you some key information about the BRIC program. So before I start going over the BRIC Overview, which is the most of today's session, I am pleased to introduce two speakers who are joining me to kick us off. First, Mr. David Marstead, who is the Deputy Associate Administrator for Insurance and Mitigation with FEMA, and Catherine Fox, the Assistant Administrator for Mitigation Directorate in FEMA's Federal Insurance and Mitigation Administration. Both Ms. Fox and Mr. Marstead have been advocates of the BRIC program and have helped pave the way for where we are today. So with that, Mr. Marstead, I hand it over to you.
Good afternoon. Today is a keystone day for the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program. Before I share the ways BRIC is transforming how the nation invests in mitigation, I need to thank Camille for kicking us off and leading our organization's efforts on BRIC, the FEMA staff for your dedication to get the program where it is today, all of you for joining in a virtual format, and your partnership as this program has come together. It's been a long road, but because of your excitement, input, participation, and hard work, we can take a moment before we get back to work to celebrate the tremendous success to get BRIC to this point. When I reassumed my role as the Deputy Associate Administrator of FEMA in the spring of 2018, I was committed to build upon our organization's successes to transform the National Flood Insurance Program and increase investment in mitigation. Despite the progress we were making, the devastating impact from disasters in 2017 and 2018 made it clear that we needed to do more, and with urgency, to increase community resilience and reduce disaster suffering. The fact is, disasters are becoming more frequent and severe, and the human and financial cost of disasters continue to rise. 2019 was the 5th consecutive year that we saw 10 or more billion-dollar disaster events, and we've already had 2 such events this year. From 2015 to 2019, disasters across the U.S. cost over $535 billion. And we've been trending in a riskier direction. Our aging and underfunded infrastructure continues to be strained by population growth that is shifting towards coastal regions. In 2017, the American Society of Civil Engineers graded the nation's infrastructure as a D+, defining the infrastructure as poor to fair condition and mostly below standard, with many elements approaching the end of their service life, segments with significant deterioration, and conditions and capacity of serious concern with strong risk of failure. It's clear that we needed something groundbreaking. We needed a program that transforms mitigation so that the next generation is more resilient and less at risk. I'm excited and encouraged today because I believe BRIC will bring us that generational change. Today is a keystone day because BRIC is primed to be that catalyst to help us build a culture of preparedness across this nation. I'm thrilled to announce with this team the official rollout of BRIC, our new pre-disaster mitigation program. When fully realized, BRIC is designed to reduce recovery costs and loss of human life, support states and communities as they undertake new infrastructure projects, shift the federal focus toward proactive investment in community resilience, and promote partnerships. It's groundbreaking because it allows FEMA to set aside 6% of disaster funding and dedicate it towards pre-disaster mitigation projects. It's a steady stream of funding for mitigation that communities need to reduce disaster suffering. The program transforms our current pre-disaster mitigation program and facilitates a greater investment in planning and projects before a disaster strikes. We expect many BRIC-funded projects to be large-scale and more complex to support FEMA's mission to protect human life and property. Our intent was to roll out BRIC with a trip to each region, but current circumstances required us to pivot. So I appreciate your flexibility and attention in this virtual environment. Over the next 5 weeks, we'll be diving deep into various aspects of BRIC, working to adequately prepare ahead of the notice of funding opportunity, the release later this summer. But what can you do today and during these webinars? Well, we're not making slight changes to pre-disaster mitigation. We're transforming it. We need your help to execute it and make it a success. These webinars are intended to be more than just an information push. It's an invitation and call to action to learn what you need to do to position your community to be prepared for BRIC funding. This includes identifying steps that you need to take to put successful applications together. And where there's capacity or resource constraints, explore partnerships with other jurisdictions, NGOs, academic institutions, or the private sector. I encourage you to think about what your community needs, what it needs to do to build resilience. How can you take your mitigation plan to the next level or better tie it to your community's budget and needs? And adopting and enforcing higher standard building codes. BRIC does provide an opportunity to build resilience at the local level, but it will take leadership to make it successful. Reducing disaster suffering demands resolute actions, and BRIC can inspire new and innovative collaborations and a shift in our thinking on what it means to maximize mitigation investments. We're embarking on a new way to build resilience that leads to less disaster suffering. In 5, 10, 15 years from now, I want to hear your success stories, how your smart thoughts, intentional planning, and coalition building combined with the new federal resources resulted in that innovative project that withstood the heavy rains, rising river, tornado, hurricane, or earthquake. So let's get ready to roll up our sleeves and get to work. It's been a pleasure to be with you today. Now let me introduce our next speaker, Catherine Fox, Assistant Administrator of the Mitigation Directorate. Catherine and her team are working tirelessly to develop and implement this groundbreaking program. Over to you, Catherine.
Awesome. Thank you very much, David. I appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. As David said, I'm Catherine Fox. I'm the Assistant Administrator for the Mitigation Directorate in FEMA's Federal Insurance and Mitigation Administration. As David said, we continue to experience increasingly severe natural disasters, which damage communities across our nation, and the human and financial costs of disasters continue to rise. FEMA offers a number of programs to assist communities after disasters occur, but we also recognize the urgent need to invest in resilience and help communities avoid disaster damages before they happen. And that's where our new Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, or BRIC as we like to call it, comes in. BRIC is an exciting new FEMA mitigation program that will become a catalyst for changing the way communities across the country can become more resilient against natural disasters. In late 2018, Congress passed the Disaster Recovery Reform Act, or DRRA, which provided FEMA this exciting opportunity to shift to more proactive investment in community resilience. This new legislation ensures a steady stream of funding year to year for hazard mitigation projects by allowing FEMA to set aside 6% of our disaster costs to invest in resilience. As David said, BRIC will replace FEMA's existing pre-disaster mitigation program, providing a new and innovative way for communities to enhance their resilience. We started out our efforts to design BRIC by developing a set of guiding principles and then kicking off what may have been FEMA's largest stakeholder engagement ever. So for BRIC, we have 6 guiding principles which align with FEMA's strategic plan. Camille will describe these in more detail. There will be a slide, so no need for detailed notes right now. Those principles are: number 1, support community capability and capacity building. And this is critical. A federal grant program can't be successful without strong state and local applications. Our second principle, encourage and enable innovation. While FEMA has invested significantly in mitigation over the years, we continue to see disaster damages rise, and we want to work with you to fund innovative solutions. Our third principle is to promote partnerships. We know that government alone cannot solve our pressing challenges, and we encourage state and local governments to continue to build on your partnerships with the private and nonprofit sectors. We want to enable large infrastructure projects. Camille will talk a bit about this today, and we'll also provide some project examples on some of our future webinars. And finally, we want to maintain flexibility and provide consistency. Many of you may have seen and commented on FEMA's draft BRIC policy, which is deliberately broad and intended to create a consistent framework for the program while giving states and communities the flexibility to step outside of the box and take meaningful mitigation actions. Throughout 2019, stakeholders, probably including many of you, provided over 5,000 comments that have informed every single aspect of the BRIC program. We used stakeholder feedback to draft the BRIC policy, which was published in the Federal Register this spring. We also used your feedback to set clear program priorities and develop the detailed Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, which we plan to post on grants.gov in August. The NOFO is going to provide detailed program information and other grant requirements. And as Camille mentioned, we're also going to host an additional webinar series once that's out to provide a lot more detail on the program. Finally, we also used your feedback to develop all of our program support materials. You told us what you need for this program to be successful. And while we won't be able to address everything, especially in year 1, your comments have set our direction and our priorities for this program for the next several years. In closing, this BRIC Summer Engagement Series that Mr. Marstead and I are kicking off today is meant to inform our stakeholders and provide you as much background and information as we can. As with any new program, we will learn a lot in this first year. There are things we can't do right now, and no doubt there are things that we'll get wrong. What gives me great confidence is that we're designing BRIC to embody the concepts of collaboration, capacity building, partnerships, and transparency. As I hand this presentation over to Camille Crane, our BRIC Section Chief, I want to stress again how thrilled we are to have you all here and encourage your continued interest and enthusiasm as we roll out this program. I know these are uniquely challenging times and budgets are tight, but it's imperative that we work together to move mitigation forward and reduce disaster suffering across the country. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you guys today. It's my pleasure to introduce Camille, our BRIC Section Chief. She comes to us with over 20 years of leading mitigation grant programs in FEMA Region 6 and Region 4, along with the state perspective as the State Hazard Mitigation Officer for Kentucky. Luckily, I managed to persuade her to move to DC and help to transform FEMA's approach to mitigation. So Camille, over to you.
So thank you so much, Catherine and Mr. Marstead. Really appreciate the opening that you all did. And I look forward, and I'm very excited today to present the BRIC Overview to all of you all. It constitutes everything we've been doing over the past 10 so months as a program team in using that stakeholder feedback that Catherine talked about and putting together where we are today. So what you'll see on your screen is the agenda of what all we're going to Overview. That includes the legislation. The guiding principles will go more into detail about what those are. Going through the policy, giving a few details of where that is right now and what's in it. We'll go through the timeline, or what we call the pizza tracker, or where BRIC is, how much funding, or how the funding is derived, I should say. We'll talk about some of those key differences between us and the PDM program, if we're familiar with FEMA's Pre-Disaster Mitigation program. We'll go into details about what makes a project eligible, what are those elements of a good project, and give a few project examples. We'll end with some more information about the stakeholder feedback and engagement and resources. And at the end, we'll talk about what's coming up next, as well as we're going to have some polling questions for you. And don't forget also the pod down there where you can download the presentation. There are some great details that on some of the slides that you may want to read later. So going back to the legislation, or where BRIC comes from, as Catherine said, we are part of the we come from the Disaster Recovery Reform Act, Section 1234, 1234 specifically, which amended Section 203. And we are replacing FEMA's existing pre-disaster mitigation program. So PDM had its last cycle with FY19, and we will start this fall with FY20. We are funded at 6% of set-aside from federal post-disaster grant funds, and I have something we call the piggy bank tracker that I'll talk about, the piggy bank slide, where I'll talk about how that funding is derived. And then another key piece of that legislation is our eligible applicants. So our state and territories that have had a major disaster declaration in the past 7 years, so that's 7 years prior to the opening of the application period, are eligible applicants. So this spring of 2020, we had unprecedented that every single state, territory, and the District of Columbia got a major disaster declaration. So everyone just got a 7-year buy-in for BRIC, and that also includes our federally recognized tribes. While they are not listed in the legislation, they are eligible applicants and fall under the same requirement. So with every state and territory having a major disaster declaration, tribes are also eligible. So walking through those guiding principles that Catherine talked about, these have really been the cornerstone of what we've used as a program team to inform the build-out or the design of the program. That first one, supporting communities' capacity and capability building. I really live into the BRIC name, building resilient infrastructure and communities. And that C is important, the communities. A lot of times people focus on the I with the infrastructure, but building resilient communities is equally as important. And I'll talk about a little later in the presentation how that comes up with some project types we're trying to fund or we want to fund. We want to encourage and enable innovation. And that's sometimes people have talked about that makes them nervous. What do we mean? And I always want people to be at peace when we talk about innovation, that it's how are you being innovative? We want to meet you where you are, and how are you being innovative? So is that maybe in a different project type or technique of how a project may be done? Maybe it's how you fund the project. Maybe it's how you partner with other organizations or how you manage. But how are you being innovative for yourself? We want to promote partnerships. We know that one grant program alone can't fix all the infrastructure, for example, in the United States, can't really build resiliency by itself. And so we wanted to act with more intention about partnerships. We also know that the vast majority of infrastructure in the United States is owned by the private sector. So that's going to necessitate partnering as well to be able to mitigate. We want to enable large infrastructure projects. So we've looked at how we could potentially look at a project cap, for example, that would enable larger projects to be done. We want to maintain flexibility. And for me, that really comes from two different ways. As I said, we get funded from a post-disaster funding, 6% of federal post-disaster funding. Well, that means we could have fluctuations in the program from year to year. So does the framework of the program have that flexibility to enable us to change the program depending on what the size of the program is from year to year? And then secondly, we're very serious about continuous improvement. As Catherine said, we know everything won't be perfect year one, and we want to learn from ourselves and then learn from our stakeholders as we roll out and implement this program. So we want to have flexibility to be able to change and make continuous improvements. And then finally, that providing consistency. We are one of FEMA's hazard mitigation grant programs or hazard mitigation assistance programs. So we want to be, where it makes sense for our programs or the programs to align, we want to do that. All these also speak to or are informed by the current FEMA strategic plan that has 3 goals. And I see BRIC living into each of these. One is about building a culture of preparedness, and part of that is increasing the investment for mitigation and resiliency. And BRIC speaks right into that as part of that investment. 2 is readying the nation for catastrophic disasters. As we're able to fund these projects that protect lifelines and protect critical services in communities, we know communities can respond or recover faster. And then the 3rd, reducing the complexity of FEMA. That's true for any grant program you stand up. We're trying to make sure that we are as streamlined and transparent and make this as uncumbersome as possible. So Catherine talked about our policy, and that is our foundational document. That was released through the Federal Register notice on April 10th with comments due May 11th. We are currently adjudicating all the comments that came in. We had 147 responses with around 900 unique comments that we responded to. We are editing the policy, adjudicating those comments, sending them back up to publish back in the Federal Register notice. One thing I wanted to show you on this slide, because you'll see it on multiple slides, is in the upper right-hand corner, there's an icon that is 3 people with a thought bubble above them. That is to let you know that the stakeholder feedback that Catherine mentioned that was done in the summer of 2019 heavily influenced the stuff on that slide, or the doc for the example of the policy here. And you'll see that icon repeated on multiple slides throughout the presentation. So I wanted to give you some examples out of the policy of key pieces of the policy. So the first is, what are the available funding mechanisms of BRIC? So we have 3 different ways that the funding goes out. The first will be a state and territory allocation. So for the first year of BRIC, every state and territory will get a flat amount, the same amount. That amount will be listed in the Notice of Funding Opportunity that they can apply for mitigation projects and specifically capacity and capability building projects that I'll describe later. The second piece of the money is a tribal set-aside. So we are taking a portion of our BRIC fund and we're setting it aside just for our federally recognized tribes. And then the balance of the funds, so after we take the money that's set aside for state and territories through the allocation and tribes through the set-aside, will be in a national competition. And that is the majority of our funds. How can you use those funds? There's 3 different ways, or 3 different overall project types that come out. The first is the capacity and capability building projects. So these come under that allocation, and they include topics like mitigation planning. So we will have the update or the new mitigation planning, update to mitigation plans, as well as other planning-related activities. We're also having in that building codes. So the ability to get project money to either adopt a code, enforce a code, or better your code. We have partnership as a fundable activity. So you can put in funds to help get a partner, find a partner, recognize where your gaps are in partners, but really put some money out there to have more intention about building that partnership frameworks on the local level. We also have project scoping. So that is what was formerly called advanced assistance. Project scoping is basically getting seed money to help develop an application. So what are those technical components, maybe environmental permitting or other things that need to happen to support the the submittal of a project in the future. We also then, of course, are funding mitigation projects themselves. So the brick and mortar type infrastructure, retrofit, all those traditional plus innovative different project types, and I'll go more into that a little later. There's management costs associated, so funds that you can apply for to help you manage these grants. And then at the top, you'll see where uses of assistance, there's technical assistance. And this is something new in the program where we're going to have a non-financial direct technical assistance. So more information will be coming out about that in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. But this is a piece of the program where FEMA and its partners can help communities directly in different resiliency needs. I wanted to pull out one piece of the policy that I thought was really game-changing through my history of working in mitigation programs, and that's how we're going to treat pre-award costs. So pre-award costs are those costs that you incur prior to award to develop your application. It's not for the implementation of the program, or for the project, I should say, but it's for the cost to put your application together, do the design work, do the engineering, do the permitting work, things like that. They've been in the program in the past, but they were always capped that you could not start incurring those costs till the opening of the application period. What we've done is we've removed that date for when you can start incurring those costs out of the program. So you can incur those costs at any time. You could be incurring those costs now to help put an application together. Of course, you run the risk that if the project is not funded, you don't get reimbursed for those costs, but it gives you a longer window on the front end to collect or to build that application. So this is what I call the PISA tracker. So this is where we are currently in development and rollout of the BRIC program. So you can see we've gone through, starting the summer of 19 with policy and program development, went through policy review throughout the fall, and then publishing the policy in the Federal Register notice in April. So on May 11th, I was very excited we got to move our red arrow to the next, which is the BRIC rollout and training. We started that in the spring with offering different webinars for different organizations and at different conferences. For us, it really kicks off today with the summer engagement series, these 5 weeks, rolling into the fall, and that Notice of Funding Opportunity coming out, planned right now for August. We'll have training throughout that month as well in September. And right now, the grant application period is scheduled to open at the end of September, first part of October. So how is money derived, or how is the BRIC piggy bank built? And this is we get a lot of questions on this. So the way funding gets into the BRIC program is by major disaster declarations. So when a major disaster declaration happens, 180 days after that declaration, we take a 6-month estimate. So basically it's an estimate of 7 different sections of the Stafford Act. It's the same 7 sections that fund the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, if you're familiar with it. But we look at the 6-month estimate for those 7 sections, and the Disaster Relief Fund basically takes 6% of those estimates and puts them into the BRIC piggy bank. So within the Disaster Relief Fund, there's a set-aside fund just for BRIC. So every time a disaster hits 180 days, money gets put in the piggy bank. And that happens on a reoccurring continual basis every time a disaster hits 180 days. And then once a year, we break open the piggy bank, and we take the money out and we put it into the program. So that's what's happening right now, is money is accruing continually in the bank, and we will break it open and fund year 1. So how is the program different from the Pre-Disaster Mitigation, or PDM program? So one is how we look at priorities. We have priorities on lifelines and infrastructure projects. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I'll talk more about building codes. Building codes is actually written into the legislation or into the DRA quite a lot. So the BRIC program is being very responsive to building codes. We're looking at that shared responsibility and partnerships, knowing that one funding source alone can't do all of it. So we're looking at how projects are using partnerships and shared responsibility, and then how projects are being innovative. As I said before, with building capacity or building capability, that we want to fund certain types of projects under the allocation. So I talked about those before, being the planning, the project scoping, the building code work, the partnership work. We've also know that we don't know everything about how a community needs to build capacity or capability. So we've left it open that if there's other project types that you can think of to help you build capability, you can apply for those. We talked a little bit about the in-person non-financial technical assistance. And then another thing we're doing is developing the Mitigation Action Portfolio, or what we're calling the MAP. And that's a selection of case studies. Currently, it is in its final stages to be published. It is a collection of around 40 different projects. They are multi-hazard. They are different sizes. They are across the United States. We wanted to have projects in there that any community could see themselves in, and they are quick 2 pages that give the community information about what the project is, what lifeline it meets, what hazards it mitigates, what was its benefit-cost ratio, who were the partners, how much did it cost, who owned it, what different partners were used. And then it has a nice photo, and also it has a section where if after you read those 2 pages you're really interested in it, you can go learn more about the project. And that is something we see as a living document that will be updated over time. It is also, as Catherine mentioned, one piece of program support material that we will have coming out at the same time as the NOFO and opening the application period to help give more information about some of the differences in BRIC in an effort to hope to make applicants and sub-applicants successful. We are also looking at how we can increase flexibility. We've looked at reducing different limitations, increasing caps for dollar amounts of what can be funded, and allowing that expanded time frame for pre-award cost. We're looking at streamlining processes. At the same time we're rolling out a new program, BRIC, we're also rolling out a new application system, which is FEMA Go, standing for Grant Outcomes. It is web-based, and that will be the application system BRIC will be using. We listened when we heard the stakeholder feedback about giving regions, the FEMA regions, more authority. So we're looking at how we do project extensions using our regional offices. And then adding phased projects in as well. So phased projects are something that are currently allowed in the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. It's another idea of when you almost are there with design and permitting and completing the application, but you just need a little bit more to be able to get that work done, that upfront work to be able to start construction. It's the ability to fund a phase 1, to get the money out, to finish the design, finish those last pieces you need to make eligible projects, and then, if successful, moving to phase 2 construction. So what makes a project eligible? This is a question we've got quite a bit. Is this project type still eligible? This is something I've always, we've always depended on. Is that still eligible? Yes. All existing projects are still eligible. You'll see a copy there on the left-hand side of the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Guidance from 2015. That's the latest version. Inside of it, it does have a table of eligible projects. All those project types are still eligible. On top of that, we've included new project types. So that includes project scoping, formerly known as advanced assistance, so that's seed money, the building code projects, and then additional project types that were brought to us by different sections of the DRA, including wind and wildfire from Section 1205 and early earthquake warning from 1233. At the end of the day, a project must be everything that's in that blue box to the right. So this is where we want to live into innovation. It must be cost effective, and we have ways through benefit cost analysis and pre-calculated benefits to show cost effectiveness. It must reduce or eliminate risk and damages from future natural hazards. We are very supportive of co-benefits or ancillary benefits, but at its core, it must be a project that reduces the risk and damages from natural hazards. If it's a construction project, it must meet one of the latest 2 consensus codes for whatever project type that is. For example, If it's a building project, that's either the 2015 or 2018 International Building Code, but whatever that consensus code is for that project type, it must meet one of those latest two, and that is in our in the DRA specifically, 1234. It must align with the hazard mitigation plan. That's at the applicant and sub-applicant level, and must meet all environmental and historic preservation requirements. On top of that, that's all what makes the project eligible, but here are some things we're looking at to make a project a good project. One is, what's the risk reduction? Does the application clearly articulate the natural hazard risk reduction, the ancillary benefits that will be achieved, the innovation that's going into it, and how you're increasing resiliency? So there's a clear and concise description of how that risk reduction is being achieved. Along with that, what's the grant implementation approach? So does the application give confidence that this great project that's being described can actually be completed? Do we have a grant implementation approach that shows the different resources that are going to be used, that has a work schedule, the manpower, everything else to actually complete the work? Has there been innovation in the project planning and implementation? So once again, meeting communities where they are, but how is the community being innovative for them? What are the populations impacted? So looking at what are the who and where and what are the direct benefits of the project, as well as the indirect benefits. How have partnerships and outreach been done? So what are the partners on the project, and how are partners being used either in formation of the project and or implementation of the project? How has outreach been done in the community? Are future conditions being considered? So is the project that we're funding today, or the project we're funding today, not only meeting the challenge of today, but the challenges of tomorrow, whether that's sea level rise or population changes or demographic changes, land use changes? What are the future conditions of the community or where the project's happening, and how is the project addressing those? And then lastly, looking at those infrastructure and community lifelines projects. We've mentioned building codes quite a bit, and that's because building codes, as I said, live throughout the DRA. The DRA provided a legislative mandate to support the broader adoption of updated building codes. And that is going to show in a variety of ways in the program, including, as I talked about, the construction projects must meet one of those latest two consensus codes. We have the BRIC project type for funding under the allocation of building code work. And we see that increasing from year to year, the importance of building codes in the BRIC program. Community lifelines are something that's been around in FEMA for a few years now. It was really, and I give a little plug for, I think it's session number 4 of the Summer Engagement Series, where we'll be dedicating a full hour to community lifelines. That being said, I should also give a plug for building codes, which is the 3rd session where we'll be dedicating an hour for building codes. But the community lifelines are something that's been in FEMA for a few years, created really from a response standpoint as a way to look across a community in these 7 different areas, knowing that these were critical services, and if you reported on these 7 areas and got them up and running, a community was responding or back on track faster. We originally, as a long-term mitigator, I didn't pay a lot of attention, honestly, to what was happening in the lifelines construct, but started thinking over the last year or two that if we center our mitigation around funding projects that protect these 7 different community lifelines, then when we get to a disaster, the response is less. The recovery is faster. So that is an element we are putting in the program. We did a survey or a study of all the project work we funded over the last few years to see how they would map across the lifelines. And almost all of our projects map across at least one of these lifelines. But that is something we're really looking for in the BRIC program, is projects that will protect or will reduce the risk to one or more of these lifelines. Getting into some example projects for BRIC, these are projects that have been funded through other mechanisms, so as we looked at them, they have different elements that are very much meet into the BRIC priorities. First one we're going to look at is this nature-based infrastructure project that is in Hoboken, New Jersey. It is an underground resiliency park that is in the middle of a very urban area. So what you end up with is beneath that green structure, there is, I think, almost 2 million gallons of water storage for when there is overflow from flooding situations. So it basically reduces flooding while at the same time having a very nice green structure on top that gives park space in the middle of a very urban area. This is also a project that was funded out of PDM with a $10 million cap or $10 million federal share with a $47 million non-federal share. So that was a project that overmatched and looked at innovative ways to do funding. As a second example, we have the St. Vrain in Creek in Longmont, Colorado. This is a project that's been planned to create a resilient St. Vrain. So it is looking at how to use nature-based solutions to shore up or to stabilize, I guess, the creek and reduce flooding for the surrounding area. It also is a project that has added in a community benefit. You can see the trail system that is to the right of the creek in the design drawing. So it offers that ancillary benefit for community as well. This is a project example I got to tour back in August of last year, and it is not FEMA funded. This is a microgrid installation with Blue Lake Rancheria Tribe in Humboldt County, California. It is a partnered project, so you can see an example there on the screen of the different partners they had that offered funding in this with Siemens, Tesla, the California Energy Commission, and the Idaho National Laboratory. What the tribe did is they looked at a very holistic way to have community or have energy resiliency for their community. It's a mixture of a microgrid with batteries and generators. And what they've been able to do is their hotel there can serve as a hospital. They are credited with saving 4 lives during a power outage in October of 2019. They have on-site refrigeration for medicine that they let not only their tribal members but the surrounding community can come and refrigerate their medicine so when they have the power outages, their medicine is safe. They also on site have a gas station that can stay operational when the power goes out, and they prioritize gasoline for first responders throughout the community. So it's an example of a whole kind of the idea with energy resiliency of a whole protection, not just one element. They have thought through how they've partnered. They've thought through offering benefits to not only their tribal members, but the surrounding community as well. And then my final example is the Nicholas Children's Hospital in Miami, Florida. This is a hospital that they did, of course, being in Miami, subject to hurricanes, was rated at protection up to a level 2, hurricane category number 2. And they did whole envelope protection to bring up the rating to a hurricane category level 4. So making sure that they could stay online throughout the hurricane season. I won't go through everything in this slide, but this is more information for you if you download to take home about project scoping. So once again, this is what was formerly known as advanced assistance. What was interesting through our stakeholder feedback is we heard we need more, right? We need more advanced assistance, more money. But we actually saw an underutilization of it in the PDM program. So what we thought is, well, maybe we just aren't explaining it well enough. We've also looked at how much funding we can put towards project scoping using that allocation. It is one of the CNCB or capacity and capability building project types. But project scoping is, hopefully that makes sense to people. that this is about that seed money to put forth or put toward putting an application together to apply in future cycles. So there's all kinds of information on this slide about what that can include, and I would suggest, or welcome you guys reading that on your own later. Another thing I wanted to make sure we talked about a little bit today is the benefit cost analysis. If you remember back on the slide where I said those 5 things that every project must be, those eligibility components, the very first one is cost effectiveness. And the way that FEMA shows cost effectiveness is through our benefit cost analysis. You'll see the website there where you can learn a lot more information about our BCA. We need to see in our projects those BCAs that have a BCR or benefit cost ratio of 1.0 or greater. We do have different project types that have pre-calculated benefits. You can find out more about that on the website as well. Knowing that those pre-calculated benefits are great for the project if you're applying for one of those project types, because it releases you from having to complete the entire module. But we want to make sure you had the information today about how to find out more about the BCA, the benefit cost analysis, and where to get that information. Technical assistance was something we heard a lot in our stakeholder feedback as well, is that communities just need help putting together, whether it's help finding partners, help putting together applications, help implementing projects, help figuring out what they needed to do. So we've tried to look at technical assistance in a variety of different ways. A couple of them we've talked about today are that Mitigation Action Portfolio or MAP that we'll be publishing. That will give the different case studies that provide more information on different project types and more information about how projects are structured or where to get more information on those projects. I've talked a little bit about the non-financial direct technical assistance. We are going to be able to do that on a small scale this first year to see how it works out, more information about how that actually is administered through the notice. We'll come out with a notice of funding opportunity, but we're looking at a small section or being able to work with a small set of communities on a specific challenge they are having in mitigation or resiliency, as well as sessions like today. This webinar series, the NOFO webinars we're going to be doing in August and September, different speaking engagements where we've spoken about the program. Those are different ways we've done technical assistance. The suite of program support materials that will come out with the NOFO on different subjects related to the program. Those will be another piece of technical assistance. And then I'll give a plug to our FEMA regions, who are out there offering technical assistance on a daily basis with their applicants. Partnerships is something that, as you know, is a guiding principle, one of those top 6 that we talked about at the beginning. And that is something that we are working on that is going to be a multi-year effort. We are creating at the federal level or at our level a framework to be able to have partnership within the program, looking at federal agencies, our SLTT or state, local, tribal, and territorial partners, the private sector, non-governmental, and building a network. And we see for that network basically 3 different levels. We have champions. We've been very blessed to have a lot of different organizations want to help spread the message about BRIC, so they are serving as champions for us. The next level we're looking at with our partnerships is those that offer technical assistance or different services. There's a lot of different agencies and organizations that, for example, have data or have technical resources that could help with either at the community level or at the national level with the program. And then our final thing we're looking at with partners is where we can actually have funding connectors. So we have the program is 75% federal, 25% non-federal. For small and impoverished community, there is a 90% federal cost share with a 10% non-federal cost share. So we're looking at who are those organizations that could help be funding connectors. As I said, we're just starting our framework and building this out and see this as a multi-year effort. And I'm thinking about in the future also how we have strategic partnerships at the national level, but are also helping do partnerships at the local level. In addition, though, to the work we're doing, there is the ability for a community to apply for funding to help develop their own partnerships through that allocation or the tribal set-aside as part of the capacity and capability building projects. These are just a list of some of the other project types, or I should say funding sources we have within FEMA for mitigation funds, including the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, which is our post-disaster mitigation program, the Flood Mitigation Assistance, which is the sister program for BRIC, and will be coming out with the Notice of Funding Opportunity at the same time. And then there's also, outside of Mitigation Directorate and inside of Public Assistance, is the 406 mitigation. So those are different mitigation sources that FEMA has. On top of those, we know that different states have their own funding, as well as other federal agencies like NOAA, HUD, Army Corps of Engineers, DOT, and DOE. You heard both Catherine and I talk about the stakeholder engagement, so we wanted to have some information in here just to have for you all about the stakeholder engagement we did last summer and what that resulted in. So through a series of in-person engagement, virtual forums, emails and letters, and formal comments, we ended up with over 5,000 non-attributable individual comments and over 70 agency letters. We took all that information, we used it in program design, but we also wanted to be transparent about what we heard. So we created the summary of stakeholder feedback. That is available on the BRIC website for download at fema.gov/BRIC. It is around 70 pages, and you'll see in that what are the, and just going to the next slide so you can see the themes. The report is built around these 6 different themes, and these are basic, this is what we heard. If you don't want to read 70-something pages, also on the website there's a 4-page summary that kind of gives you the highlights. You'll see there, what the report doesn't have is how we've responded, but you'll see that come through with the priorities of the program, the policy, the NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity, and the different program support material. So how we're engaging, we've been doing a lot of different sessions, including our biggest one, which is today. So thank you all for joining us on our first of the summer engagement series. As a plug, you'll see we have 4 more of these coming in. So next Wednesday, talking about the meaning of the BRIC name, then going on to BRIC and building codes, BRIC and community lifelines, and BRIC and nature-based solutions over the next 4 weeks. And then once again, once the Notice of Funding Opportunity is out at the beginning of August, or hopefully the beginning of August, we'll be switching over to NOFO webinars. Right now, just give a little teaser, we're planning for 90-minute sessions where we'll be able to give about an hour of content on the BRIC and FMA program and have about 30 minutes for Q&A, as well as having multiple of those. And they will be happening, schedule isn't out yet, but they will be happening in the month of August and September. So this is resources. Please bookmark our website. We tried to make the name as easy as we could with fema.gov/BRIC. It is where, as materials are available for the BRIC program, we'll be putting those there. So right now you'll find the pizza tracker on there. You'll find the stakeholder engagement. You'll find that infographic that you can download. But as we have materials for the BRIC program, they will live on that website. Also very important, you'll find the registration for this event series on there. Please also go to or bookmark the Hazard Mitigation Assistance website. That's where you can sign up for updates on BRIC, but also on all of our hazard mitigation assistance programs. As well as you'll see resources there or links for different things I've talked about today, including community lifelines, benefit cost analysis, hazard mitigation planning, and building codes as well. So with that, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the overview of the BRIC program. What you've just seen come up is our polling, and I hope that before you click off, you will answer some of our questions so we can get some feedback for today as we roll into the next 4. I hope you found some of the information I shared today in the overview useful. If you're thinking about joining any of the other 4 sessions, I would suggest registering. We cap these at 1,500 registrations, and we're nearing cap on all 4 of those sessions, so please register if you haven't already and you're interested. As a reminder, we are recording each of these sessions so that if people can't join us or their registration is full, they can watch them. And we will be putting out when those will be available on FEMA's YouTube channel. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us on this inaugural or first week of the BRIC Summer Engagement Series, and we look forward to having you with us next week. Thank you.